Innovative, experimental and unembarrassed about being on the cutting edge. That's how organisers today describe the best of British talent on show at this year's London Fashion Week Men's. But mixed with the excitement and pride about an industry that's booming, fashion is worth billions to the UK economy, some say there's a grey cloud threatening to rain on this parade. Brexit, and specifically a no-deal Brexit, has the fashion industry frightened.
The impact of a no-deal could be devastating. It's worth over 17 billion, which is almost as much as a car industry. And you're right, it's a sector that isn't talked about in that respect often, but it's hugely important to our economy, hugely important to GDP. And that's growing. As I say, one of the most important things about the menswear sector is that it's growing.
In fact, spending on clothing is forecast to rise by 25% over the next 5 years. But despite the growth, business leaders say the uncertainty around Brexit is making the industry nervous.
You can plan for a transition period and you can plan if you know what a deal is going to be. But having a no-deal scenario and a hard stop is going to be challenging not only for high-end designer fashion businesses, but for every business that trades within the EU. So what they're showing here, a lot of that will be in store in 6 months' time, and of course they're selling it at a fixed price, so things like currency fluctuations can be a challenge. Of course, if tariffs are then added to that, is that the designer will probably be expected to take those on and for them to swallow the costs of those, and those are the kind of things that are certainly unnerving to a business.
3/4 of British textile exports are within the EU. Over 40% of creative industry trade is too. That's why this fashion designer thinks that leaving the bloc is a big mistake. She wants a people's vote on the final Brexit deal.
I think it's really irresponsible for us not to be given that say in order to make our country function properly. Right now, Brexit hasn't even happened. And I can feel it in my business, and I think we can feel it across the board. With the pound lowering in value, all the costs have gone up, and so our margins have diminished.
As well as goods, Brexit's likely to affect people too. 60% of the models here at Men's Fashion Week are from within the EU. Despite any uncertainty, menswear sales were up by 5% last year. But in order for that growth to be maintained, designers like Bella Freud say the industry needs clarity.
Well, I'm joined now by fashion designer Catherine Hamnett and from Westminster Conservative MP Andrew Bridgen. Welcome to you both. Let me start with you, Catherine Hamnett. You've espoused many causes. Many causes have appeared on your T-shirts over the years. How does this one rate, in the greater scheme of things?
Well, it's the hugest decision Britain's going to make since World War II. So it's important, obviously, as a designer and as a business person, but as a British citizen, as a European citizen, I see it as either self-harm or suicide. So I'm putting out all the stops as far as I can, at least with T-shirts.
But do you think that Brexit will harm the fashion industry?
Well, there's a survey from Fashion Roundtable. It says that 96% of industry members, senior industry members polled, would vote Remain if they're given a second chance. 80% think leaving the single market would be bad for business. We've got such an amazing opportunity right now with Europe. I mean, what's wrong with the biggest, richest trading bloc in the world, 23 miles away across the Channel? I mean, we've got 550 million population of the EU, plus 170 Japanese now as a single market. It's an incredible opportunity for Britain to expand and to ship duty-free to all these countries. And we're talking about sending stuff to Australia. Combined population of Australia and New Zealand is 28 million.
But London fashion is also remarkable because of the kind of fashion genius that is created here, and it's various fashion schools and on the catwalk and by designers like you. Don't you think that fashion genius, that edginess, that risk-taking will survive the political turbulence of the moment?
Well, it may survive.
Might it be enhanced by it?
Well, the designers will maybe go abroad. For the industry, it's catastrophic. 75% of our components are imported. We don't even know what the tariffs
Let me put that
be.
to Andrew Bridgen. Andrew Bridgen, I notice you're not wearing a Catherine Hamnett T-shirt. So this will be catastrophic for the fashion industry, says one of its leading lights. What's your response?
Well, I must pick up your guest. She said it's, when we decide to leave at the end of March, it's the biggest decision we're ever going to make. The decision's already been made, Matt. We had a referendum, the biggest vote in the history of our country. More people voted to leave than have ever voted for anything in the history of our democracy. We're leaving the European Union.
Yeah, but what's the impact on the industry? I mean, what would you say to those who are worried about the fashion industry?
Well, culturally, economically, London is certainly the finest city in Europe and probably the world. It will still be a focal point for the fashion industry. And let's look about the future. Even under the EU's figures, they admit that 90% of world economic growth is going to be outside the European Union in future. And who wears fashion? People wear fashion. Only 6% of the world population are inside the European Union.
Okay.
We've got a great big world out there for the fashion industry, amongst others. And when we leave the European Union, we'll be the biggest market for EU goods. 17% of all of their exports are going to come to us. Do you think they're not going to take our money and keep selling goods to us?
Catherine
Of
Hammond,
course they are.
Is that a fair point?
Well, it's going to be very expensive. I mean, 96% of industry insiders polled think leaving the European Union is going to be bad for business. So, I don't know where you get your ideas. I think it's going to be a disaster. We've got shop assistants. Our goods are mostly imported. We don't know what tariff is going to be charged. The pound is going down and down. Clothes will get more expensive unless we're going to get stuff from slave labour markets. The EU is our biggest trading partner.
But what about, global Britain, selling British fashion brands abroad? Is there no future for that?
Well, what's the point in throwing away, the biggest single market in the world? I mean, America with Trump, you think he's already threatened wars on jeans, whatever. He's threatened tariffs on clothing. So why don't, what's wrong with trading with Europe, which is the single biggest consumer of clothing on the planet?
Okay, let me put that to Andrew Bridgen. I mean, we simply don't know what kind of tariff future we await unless we have a trade deal, which we may not have for many years. So that is a fair point, isn't it? And the other one, by the way, is that, London thrives on global talent that comes to the city. If those people, whether they're fashion students from Spain or Italy or Germany, don't feel welcome here anymore, like some other professions, that's bad for the industry, isn't it?
Let's just get this straight. We can leave on the 29th of March on a managed no deal under WTO, immediately then open up trade talks for a trade deal with the European Union along the lines of a super Canada deal. And then that entitles us then for up to 10 years to have tariff-free trade with the European Union until we get to conclude the free trade deal. I think the European Union would grasp that with both hands. And let's look at how our trading relationship with the European Union has been, is that we have a huge trade deficit. We buy twice as much from the European Union as we sell to them, and that's the only part of the world that we have a deficit with.
I'm afraid we've run out of time. Andrew Bridgen, Catherine Hammond, thank you very much indeed for coming to the studio.
Thank you.
Pleasure.